well. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, there's so many, after all the storms, so many branches were on the ground. I think I might have said this to you before, Bill, but one of the vitamin C mixtures I used to make, I would dehydrate pitch pine and eastern white pine needles, powder them up, and then add the orange pith, or even the whole orange rind as well if it was organic, and dried that out and blended it up with it, so it had the bioflavonols to make the vitamin C more active. And it tasted actually pretty good, but it was part of my wild food mixture that I used to make. I haven't made that part of the wild food mixture in a while, but it's a fantastic way of getting vitamin C in your diet. There's a guy, you've probably run into him in the herbal world, Marcus Rothkranz, who's a raw foodist, and whether or not people agree with that part of it, he put out a couple of really good books on foraging. They're not so much ID books, but they give a lot of ideas for people visually, and I think for new foragers that's super useful, because it's intimidating, as you know too, if you are jumping into it with no context. So Free Food and Medicine is a great resource just visually for new foragers, but I'm sure it's crossed your path since you started foraging. Can you guys believe the that vinyl chloride explosion in Ohio. I think it's a much bigger deal than they're talking about, especially once that starts to move towards Pennsylvania and other parts of the world. So we're going to be in some trouble environmentally, I think, because of that. And there was just another derailment, I think, in Texas as well. So it's crazy stuff. Yes, same. Yeah, the hemlock little shoots right early in the spring are super tasty. Any tsugai is delicious, but particularly those smaller young shoots are very lemony and fruity tasting, so I really like those. Down on the hill we have tons of garlic mustard popping up. We also have Barbaria vulgaris all over the place here, which is, you know what this is, Bill, but wintercress is another common name for it for people who don't know it. But there's a lot of literature that talks about the toxicity of some of the Brassicaceae family plants. And it's always, there's this thing in herbal literature where these plants are kind of, the descriptions are copied and pasted between books, which is really annoying because when you go to research a plant, oftentimes you encounter the same exact wording in multiple books. And it's not that that's necessarily true, it's more that the author used a resource that was the same between books. So there's a really nice book, which I'll grab at the end of this, that talks about plant uses and medicinal properties as well as foraging uses. But it gives a chronicle of how they were used and at what amount throughout history. It's probably one of the most useful books I have ever purchased for that purpose, because it shows a long-term conversation about how they're consumed or used in medicine. And oftentimes we're viewing herbalism in the sort of rational reductionist viewpoint that we currently see the world through. And a lot of these plants don't work in the way that we're used to. Like, this alkaloid has this effect, this chemical or constituent has a tertiary effect, so this is what we should isolate. In the past, obviously things like the doctrine of signatures, and all of the homeopathy as well, but all the modalities for healing didn't just focus on one active constituent. So this book does a great job of presenting that. And if I forget to say it at the end, Bill, I'll try to message me and I'll take a picture of it and send it to you. We grew Helianthus inula and also some sunchokes, and they were amazing. We had so many. Jerusalem artichokes, I've only found a couple stands that had anything underneath them wild around here, even though they're very common, particularly on like the Groton Rail Trail. That's a really good place to look for them off by the Water's Edge and Pepperell. I did find these super cool invasive water chestnuts there that they're the strangest looking seeds. And I was hiking and I was walking and all of a sudden something pierced through the bottom of my boot. And I was like, did I step on a nail? And there were these almost demonic looking bat-shaped seeds. In fact, I'll bring you inside and show you guys them, but they're super odd, like unbelievably odd. Here, I'll bring you in and I'll show you. Hold on. 1 second. It does surprisingly well in low light out here. I'm kind of impressed. So these are those seeds that I was talking about. Very strange looking seed. If I can find them. Here they are. Sorry for the crinkling, guys. So imagine you're hiking along and you encounter this crazy thing. All right, I'm sorry for the crinkle. Hi, Gracie girl. So I was hiking along and I stepped on this. Isn't that the strangest thing? It's an invasive water chestnut. And they actually have ones, hey, how's it going? These actually have an edible use as well, but they tend to clog up waterways, especially around Massachusetts, New England as well. They were an introduced plant, so people were growing these ornamentally, but they have spread obviously outside of that realm. But they're very strange to see. I was going to see if I can find the bat one, but imagine stepping on these, and they're filled with the seed that you can actually cook and eat, but they're unbelievably hard. You'd have a hard time breaking even these softer pieces with your hands. Very, very strange. I'm trying to find what the name of this one was. Oh yeah, Trappa natans. Trappa natans is the Latin name for it. Very, very odd. But I want to make these into a necklace eventually because they're just such a... Yep. Yes, indeed. Yeah. It was a very frightening thing to behold, though. I've never encountered them before except in this one particular spot. And there were thousands and thousands of them, so very, very ornate. Love them. So that was a fun adventure. Feel free to ask any questions too, guys. I made a horse chestnut tincture on this floor. Yeah, I like horse chestnut. I think it's a useful plant. I think it's a useful tincture to have on hand. But yeah, I haven't used it a ton either. I'm usually called to make a particular plant that year, and I encounter it a lot, so I end up using that particular one. This is actually some salves that I just finished. I'll show you some of those. These are some. I mostly give this stuff away now. Gracie, you swear. Okay, I just swore. This is St. John's wort oil salve. This is beeswax for my bees, organic olive oil, and St. John's wort that was soaked in oil for a bit. But I love the smell of this particular material, just such a earthy, flowery sort of smell. And I found a ton of it this year. I went out of my way to make a bunch of tinctures too. So I have some tinctures, St. John's wort tinctures. And it's interesting in the herbal realm for those here that are interested in these things. Yeah, oh yeah, it's like fantastic color. It's amazing. The interesting thing about St. John's wort, which was kind of neglected again in the herbal literature, the photosensitivity that everyone claims it causes has only really been studied in cattle. So a lot of times our test creatures and our observational creatures are animals. So they were noticing that cattle were having issues if they're eating high volumes of the whole St. John's wort plant. Whereas the flowers themselves, when used without the constituents in the leaves, are shown to not have photosensitivity. In fact, can be used as a sunscreen versus the whole plant, which can potentially cause that, but I've never experienced photosensitivity with it. But I've used St. John's wort oil salve for 15, maybe close to 17 years as a sunscreen if I'm in direct sun all day, if I know I'm going to be working in the yard or out foraging and making things. So fantastic. I had a client and a student that just used this on their face. They had to use Fluorosil. They had a skin cancer on their face, which completely removed a layer of their skin. It's pretty rough stuff, in the same family as hydrofluorosillic acid. But she started using this a couple days after she got off of that, and I could not believe the difference in 7 days in her face. It was amazing. So, huge proponent of St. John's wort oil, and particularly in salves, just because it stays on your face a little bit longer. Highly, highly recommended. So, if you guys have herbal questions, instrument questions, or whatever, I think it's 100% worth it. Bill, I'll send you some if you want some. message me after this, and I'm happy to send you some of it. I made a huge stack for her in particular too, so I'm happy to send some along to you. I used to sell a lot of this stuff on my Etsy shop, but I just haven't had time really to repost all of that. But I want to move back into that as well. But I give it away mostly. I make it for myself, and people around me. So, all right. Let me see if I missed any questions. Nope. All right. The 9 people are in here. Feel free to ask any questions or make any instrument requests. Happy to do that. I'm gonna see if I can find that book I was talking about. Oh, this is it. Okay. So if anybody's in the market for a really, really good book, this is the book I recommend for historical uses of plants. I just actually found this at a random used bookstore. This is the book. It's backwards on this. Medicinal and Other Uses for North American Plants. And this kind of chronicles the plants, gives you very simple line drawings. But it gives you, say it says box elder, and then it gives you historical accounts and medicinal uses from, this one starts in 1557 all the way up until today. So amazing, amazing resource. Medicinal and Other Uses of North American Plants. Sorry, it's backwards. See if I can reverse this here. No, I can't. All right. Favorite Rav scale? I would say B chord or G pygmy are both fantastic instruments. I play them really frequently. Oh, good, you did get this. Yeah, this one, I love this book. Amazing. Yeah, I think B chord or G pygmy are probably two of my favorite scales, but every Rav scale is amazing in its own way. It's kind of what you want to use it for. But if I had to own 2 scales, I would say the G pygmy would be one, and probably a B chord or a B Celtic would be my primary 2. So, all right, let me grab this stuff. I'll bring you back outside because it's so nice out. I can have my pile of flutes that I've been working on recently. We saved a Passiflora Incarda from the frost this year, which is kind of fun. Deal. That sounds like a great deal. I have a little mate plant here, herba mate. I have a Brugmansia here, a little datura down there. All sorts of fun plants in here. All right. Back out into the dark. All right. There seems to be a good amount of people watching this. So I've been trying to do a few more conversational streams recently, just because it's a little more fun for me to do that. It's a little less like a concert and a little more personable. Bill, have you ever made tonic water? I've tried to do it with mugwort. Actually, mugwort is one. Mugwort's a little bit sweet sometimes, though, if it's the sweet Annie, but Artemisia vulgaris makes a really interesting strong tonic water. This uses quinine, but the constituents are similar, artemisinin and quinine. So, but I've used it as a bittering agent in drinks similar to this. But it's a fun thing to mess around with too. Although I try not to have too many carbonated things. This is a G pygmy for those interested. ask. I'm happy to answer them. Yeah, just spending some time in the warm weather before it gets freezing cold again. Thank you guys for hanging out as always. I always have such a cool group of people that hang out in my lives, so I appreciate you guys. What's everybody's plan for the evening tonight? I have one more lesson tonight. Any of the people watching near Ohio and all the vinyl chloride issues there, or Texas? I'm curious what you're hearing out your way compared to what I'm hearing here. take you guys back inside because it's raining. Yeah, if you guys have any topics you want to chat about, let me know. I'm happy to do so. Let me mute myself so I don't. There we go. Yeah, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that whole chemical issue. The issue we're running into now in the world is that we're being exposed to more and more xenoestrogens through plastics. We're being exposed to chemicals that our grandparents never had experience living near or with. So it's going to be interesting to see what people in my age bracket have for a healthy life moving beyond our age now, because we've never really been exposed to a lot of the things that have been around. So it's a kind of a unique situation to be in, I think, for people in their 30s and 40s right now. Let me see if I missed anything. Thank you, Mr. Sniffles. I did find a... Oh, cool. You found... I missed that one, Bill. Sweet Annie is really tasty. I actually don't mind the taste of Artemisia vulgaris, honestly, but Sweet Annie is definitely an improvement flavor-wise over that. So maybe we could play a little flute for you guys too while we're here. This old beast was my first bass flute I ever made, and some spider webs in it. So this is a piece of Japanese knotweed, which herbalists know is amazing for all sorts of Lyme protocols. It's something that I've taken for a lot of my life now. Stephen Harrop-Buhner has a fantastic book that talks about a lot of Lyme protocols, but oh yeah, I can definitely do the hurdy-gurdy. Oh yeah, for sure. Cancer rates will undoubtedly increase. I have to keep my volume down for another 10 minutes or so potentially, but if my volume won't affect anything, then I'll definitely play the hurdy-gurdy too. Yeah, I think we won't even know what the effect is of that long term for a very long time. But this flute was made from Japanese knotweed, which the root is traditionally used for as a source of polyphenols, and sorry, not polyphenols, resveratrol, which you can buy at Whole Foods for a bunch of money. So you can either waste your money at Whole Foods on a supplement, or you could just pick it yourself and make a flute out of it, and then tincture the roots, or eat the shoots, the young shoots. I actually don't love the taste of the young shoots. I'll eat them as part of a stir fry, but they're not something that I'm super keen on flavor-wise. But I like to make flutes out of them. This is Polygonum japonica. So it's the large, giant knotweed, but there's Polygonum cuspidatum, which is the more common one you see around. That's a little bit smaller than this. But, the first time I made a bass flute, I had no clue if I'd be able to get it to work. And it took me a bunch of tries, and eventually I was able to get a sound out of it, and I was exceptionally excited because this material was huge. This is a massive bore for Japanese knotweed, so. cool flute. And it's pentatonic scales are really easy because they're kind of laid out for you. So very simple to work with. And it's nice because once you absorb the scale, hey Jody, how are you? Once you absorb the pentatonic scale, it's really easy to produce music on it because pretty much any note is a starting point. So I found that after, it didn't take me that long, but after a couple of years of playing it, I really understood exactly where everything was. It was really easy to improvise. So it's very satisfying to play these. And it's even more satisfying because I make them as well. Yes. So I think I've also read that. People have also reported that with chaga as well. I think it reminds me of the same issue people have with trifolium, or anything in the pea family, but clover. Women who take clover find it useful for hormone balancing. Over consuming it sometimes can lead to estrogen dominance. However, in men, clover has been shown to reduce the uptake of xenoestrogens into the body. So if you are dosing with red clover consistently, and I like to Susan Weed, I don't love all of her material, but she does have some good takes on a lot of things, and I like her cycling of herbs. And she also talks about it for the same reason, but for men, because of the consumption of that estrogen, phytoestrogen, it stops the body from taking up these plastic estrogens that are in a lot of our foods and packaging and waters as well. So it's a useful way of diminishing the negative effect of xenoestrogens by taking in phytoestrogens. It's kind of the same argument people make against soy and beans and peas. If you are finding ways to make sure that you're having a balance in that, then it shouldn't be an issue for people that are not eating a diet that has some sort of balancing component to it. Anything that is estrogenizing, whether it's a phytoestrogen or a xenoestrogen, can be not great for men. But in general, I feel like for men, polygonum is useful because of the same reason that trifolium is useful as well. At least it's been for me. I think we can all, particularly men, can very much benefit from that capacity from it. So, what else can I show you guys? It's relatively quiet. Let's see what this fruit is. Yes. I think I might have told you this story before, but for those that are in here that don't forage or anything, part of some of my audience here is not doesn't know the foraging end of my life too, but I've been into foraging for like 20, or not 20, maybe like 17 years or something, 18 years. So Bill's making reference to pine pollen, which for men is a really good thing for boosting testosterone production. It's kind of like in plants, there are precursors to estrogen. And in plants, there are the precursors to estrogen. It's the same thing in pine pollen. It's useful for men. It's also used for women for hormonal balancing as well. But there's one time when I was harvesting it, and this is the pine pollen that you see on your car in the spring. There's one time I was harvesting it, and it was really hot, and I had my shirt off, and I harvested a couple of different ways. Usually I like to use a sort of 1 gallon plastic, unfortunately, container, and shake it into that, just because it keeps some of it contained, and you can kind of just stick the branch in, shake it, and then pull it out. But I did this for maybe like an hour or an hour and a half, and I had biked to the place that I knew had a bunch of pollen coming from the trees. And I didn't look at myself. This was before smartphones. And I got back to my apartment back then, and I was literally like covered from head to toe in pine pollen. So the people driving by me while I was biking must have been dying because it was probably a goofy sight to see. But pine pollen's fantastic. Cattail, although is not testosterone boosting, cattail is also a wonderful flower that can be used as or pollen that can be used as a flower too. So I've baked with pine pollen, but I think it's such a pain to harvest that I end up just supplementing with it, not actually using it as a true flower. One of the things that I think is underused, but I actually like the taste of it, is Rumex crispus, which is curly dock. And curly dock is everywhere. It's in the sorrel family. It has that lemony sort of flavor that people either like or dislike, kind of like if you were to eat an oxalis. And when you dry the seeds out and you winnow off the chaff, you see them all the time. They're like brown stalks with these tiny, slippery, almost like elm-like seeds on them. Those seeds dried and ground up actually make a really tasty flour. So I didn't have a chance to do it last year, but I have in the past made a good amount of that flour. And it's not glutinous. It doesn't stick together in the same way that normal flour would, but you can definitely use it as in addition to something else. And it's pretty tasty. There's 1 or 2 trees at my family's home that it's a white oak, so they're less bitter, but these these acorns are the least tannic acorns I've ever had in my entire life. And they can be binding. They're just not good to have without leaching them. These are so mildly tannic that you can consume them without even leaching them. And I still do just to make sure, but they are fantastic. So I've been waiting every year for them to have another mast like they did a couple of years ago, but the best flour in the world. And acorn flour is interesting because if you leach it without hot water, it actually sticks together. So you could feasibly make muffins or pancakes out of that, which I've done just with acorn flour. And it just stays together like glutinous flour would. So you can see, once you've leached them that way, you can see why people would use those as a primary food source, because they're really simple to leach and they taste amazing. It's kind of this like proteiny but also starchy flavor. Super good. You probably have this book already, Bill, but one of Sam Thayer's books, which I have on the shelf there somewhere, talks really in depth about leaching and how to use them in food. And I definitely recommend that as a resource as well. Super good book. Let me grab you guys another flute. I actually don't even know what this scale is, but we'll find out. Interesting. What did you find? Ah, interesting. That's good to know. Really? Huh. There's a lot of, though, not that particular adaptogen, but there's a lot of things that are around that have not been updated as available. Even if this isn't as prized as that item, even Indian cucumber or wild cucumber. Really? Oh man, that is very exciting. I've very unsuccessfully tried to I've only tried it once, but I've moved this particular plant in hopes of growing it, and it's impossible to move. Because I moved it actually because it was in a very populated area and it was just getting pummeled. So it was more of a last ditch effort to get it to survive. But that's super exciting. That's very, very good news. I think that would be amazingly potent to have grown in the same area that we live in too. So that's a good find. Very, very good find. I have seen smaller. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the word for it, but I've seen other relatives of that particular plant in the Groton Town forest as well. So they're around. they're hiding in particular places. But yeah, that's cool. Thank you for the insight. Wachusett Mountain's actually a pretty nice hike. Watadic is somewhere I used to hike all the time when I lived in Ashby for a while, and that's a super unique area. If you go up Mount Watadic, for anybody from Massachusetts, if you park at the really fast trail up Mount Watadic, there's a parking lot before that called the North County Land Trust. And I haven't been there in the spring yet, but I have a feeling that it's going to have so many edible plants. There's a ton of vegetation there that it looks like it's going to be very fruitful in the spring. So highly, highly, highly recommended. Um, um, oh, interesting. Very interesting. So here is a different flute for you guys. Good night. Thanks for hanging out. Yes, Gushy Ganoderma is one of my favorite spring ephemerals. It's a good one. All right. Any last questions before I head out for the night? It was fun to hang out and talk. I'm going to try to do more of these conversation and playing sorts of videos for you guys. Because it seems like it holds people's interest, so I'm glad for that. I like to talk, so... I also wanted to throw this out here for anybody in the New England area. I do play the Didge, yes. House tour? my house is very small. Yeah, it's kind of a mess though right now, but I'll give you a general tour. This is my bookshelf, instruments. Well, are my bunnies down there? More instruments. Old couch from the 1800s. There's my kitchen. There's a bathroom. And a bedroom. And that's the size of my house. I live in a very small house. But it's a cool place. And this is Gracie. Hi, Gracie girl. No, Gracie. That's Gracie. She's the best. Hey, Gracie girl. Can you say hi to everybody? She's the cutest. Do you want to say hi to everybody? No? You want a pet? Or no? Am I scaring you with the camera? Hi. Can I give you a little snack? Want a snack? There you go. I'm always amazed at how they eat. They have such an interesting way of eating food. Yeah, she says all sorts of things. She's 26 years old, so she's a middle-aged lady for parrots, that is. Yeah, she does. Somewhere, I think I put it on one of my YouTube shorts where she's talking. She says hello. She says bye. All sorts of interesting things. She also will answer the phone, like if my phone rings or she sees me typing, she'll make like the tapping noises for typing on an iPhone. She says hello, like she's answering a phone, in the voice of her previous owner. Her previous owner, we adopted her. Her previous owner was sick and had some sort of a lung condition. So he surrendered her to foster parrots in Rhode Island. And we met her there, and she's part of the house here. She's super sweet. It's interesting. I always liked animals growing up, but I was never super connected to all of them. And my adult life is me starting to be even more in love with animals. So, yeah. But, all right, guys. Hope you have a good rest of your night. Let me see if I missed anything. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. Appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.